New Yorkers have Central Park. We in Los Angeles have this. Here, in a Sunday afternoon, people seem happy and content. This is the same city, looking from afar, in the same Sunday afternoon. At an even grander scale, we look at civilization. I think everyone at one time or another ponders the state of our civilization. The civilization first is not wealth, civil society, high levels of literacy and comfortable living. For instance, the Chinese civilization has been dead for more than 2,000 years. But for long stretches of that dead civilization, all of those elements were present. Before I came to America, I've heard of the phrase, the American dream. It obviously does not mean that you can be rich by working hard, because there are definitely more money-hungry fools in China. No matter how strict a dictator is, it is never possible for his propaganda machine or brainwashing schools to be airtight. People have to choose to close their mind to be fooled. The Chinese brainwashing apparatus constantly told me that the evil American imperialists were everywhere in the world, forcing their desire down the throat of the oppressed mass. Since the Chinese Communist Party said that it wanted to liberate the world, they kind of want to do the same. It seems that they just didn't have the ability. For the United States, evil as it may be, to become so powerful, there must be a reason. That was my curiosity then, and probably the number one reason I came here. Now, if you go to China and ask people to tell you their story, you get helplessness, like, what else could I do? Mind you, many of those people, including many friends of mine, are phenomenally rich. Why are they saying this? But they know if they stop doing the Communist Party's bidding today, they'll lose their money and probably their freedom tomorrow. There is a saying in China that if you make more than 10 million RMB, which is a little more than $1 million US, your company is no longer yours. In America today, if you ask people about their stories, you'll find that everybody's story is different. Everybody's dreams different, and their way of realizing their dreams are different. Nobody here even tries to, for instance, get on to the good side of President Trump. Just listen to his press conferences. But nobody dares not to support the dictator in China. The civilization is alive when each person can do his own things. The government infringes upon that freedom only minimally. But that view of the American founding fathers is losing its popularity here. So now we come back to the question about the state of our civilization. In other words, is the American civilization dead? A Chinese YouTuber said that when he criticized Twitter for appointing someone with a history of working with the Chinese government to manage the Twitter censorship, Twitter deleted all his Twitter accounts. To me, Twitter proved his accusation and showed its intention to censor any criticism quite shamelessly. But at the same time, Trump, who's no fan of Twitter leftist censorship or Chinese brainwashing, could still speak freely on Twitter. Many Chinese YouTubers said that YouTube blocked ad placement of their videos when they pointed out that the Chinese government was lying about the coronavirus situation in China. So the YouTubers were forced to call the coronavirus something else to avoid the YouTube censor. It sounds to me like that the state of free speech in America is getting close to that of China. However, I haven't heard anybody unable to publish on YouTube. let alone being arrested by the police. They simply could not make money off of their programming. So there is still a difference. Some people here label those who criticize China xenophobic or racist. I don't think they thought about what an unrestricted China could do to the world. Besides that, for me, a Chinese, I noticed that they're the same people who support the open and wholesale discrimination against the Asians by our college admission system. Narrowly speaking, I don't think that it is racist to criticize the Chinese government. I criticized its policies for 4 years as a radio talk show host. But the practice of the college admission system is purely racist. No wonder I've heard people saying that we got the short end of the stick, whether staying in China or coming to America. Decades of self-destructive policies of America have turned China into one of the center problems of the world today. However, scanning the newspapers and TV channels, you almost never see any Chinese explaining the situation. When I wrote a series of articles to rectify the situation, nobody cared to publish any of them. 30 years ago, when I was a kid knowing next to nothing, I did not have that problem. Today, China is explained to the American people by a bunch of white China experts who at least are admirers of the Chinese system at one time, because otherwise China would not give them visas to study in China in the first place. While in China, these people got special treatments, including, believe it or not, government-assigned girlfriends. They have no experience of the real life of the Chinese. The point is, don't you want somebody who has eaten shit to tell you what's it like? It is America closing its mind, which caused today's China militarily forcing itself on Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, the South China Sea nations, and Guam, a U.S. territory. You remember the saying that all the armies could not by force take a drink from the Ohio River or make a track on the Blue Ridge in a trial of 1,000 years? No, if the destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we will live forever or die by suicide. I think it is fair to say that the American civilization or the American dream is at risk, but I wouldn't say that the American civilization is dead. At least in 2016, the system was able to elect a complete outsider by protest against the best interests of every kind. But the civilization is not dead if it is still able to make changes. Almost all politicians run under the slogan of change. The question is whether the people could elect the one who actually would do it. A common scene of a dead civilization, such as China, is that the society is in the trap that it couldn't escape. The call for freedom and democracy in China came more than 100 years ago. Now it is one of the last handful of dictatorships in the world. To put this in another way, let's say that the 2016 election were a total mistake. As long as the American civilization is not dead, it could always correct itself. In this series, we're going to approach the question from another angle, because the development of art is one of the best indications of the state of civilization. The Egyptian pyramids, Greek sculptures, Roman architecture, and Renaissance paintings all testified to the thriving developments of their corresponding civilization. Some define modern art as art from the 1860s to 1970s. If modern art has truly stopped its development in the 1970s, then it is fair to say that our civilization has been dead by then. The purpose of this series is to explore that. Another benefit of exploring art is that it is fun to look at art. To tell you the truth, it is painful for me to talk about whether the American majority want our educational system to discriminate Asian kids. Do you know that the discrimination has forced many Asian kids, not to mention their parents, to become GPA and SAT fanatics? In my experience, that zealot has done more damage to the Chinese kids than the discrimination itself. Okay, let's talk about art. Since we're talking about modern art, we need to give it a definition. We have to draw a line somewhere. We cannot separate Monet and Cézanne in time, for instance, because they're practically of the same age. Also, we cannot make a clear definition by style. If we say Monet is the transition from classic to modern and Cézanne started the modern art, then what about Goya, who was born in 1746? If we take Goya as the start of modern art, then what about El Greco, who was born in 1541? Da Vinci died only some 20 years before that. It's not a definite line, but we have to draw it somehow. So we do the cut between Monet and Cézanne. Those after Cézanne, Matisse, Picasso, Van Gogh, Gauguin, etc., are all considered modern artists. To make everyone happy, Picasso once said that Cézanne is the father of us all. Nobody said that about Monet. In any case, classification here is mostly for convenience. In fact, none of the conclusions here is important. What is important and fun is in thinking. To put this in another way, if you study art by remembering some conclusions, you got nothing. It is especially sad that if you did it by attending a class, because the conclusions are probably not even your teachers. Okay, house cleaning issues. To meet the cultural trend of bite-sized programming, we're gonna do this one bite at a time. Also, we're gonna set up some donation links and a Patreon account maybe. With your help, one day, we may be able to afford some professional help. We intend this program to be bi-directional, so please feel free to comment. Although we cannot respond to all comments, we promise to read every single one and answer some in the program. If there is demands down the road, we can always do a live program to respond to questions and comments. Okay, that's it. Until next time, everybody stay safe in this coronavirus pandemic, which is known as Chinese virus by some, American virus by others, COVID-19 by the bureaucrats. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.